Part 1. I started seeing myself in places I've never been. I didn't notice it at first, not because it was hidden, but because it didn't seem important. It started with a message from someone I didn't know. No profile picture, no name, just a blank account. The message was simple. Nice jacket. I almost didn't reply. Actually, I didn't plan to, but something about it felt specific. Too specific, because I was wearing a jacket, a dark one. Nothing special, but still. I checked the window behind me. The reflection, the street. No one was there. I ignored it, blocked the account, moved on, or at least I thought I did. The next day, it happened again. Different account, same empty profile. This time, the message said, "Turn around." I didn't. I don't know why, but something in me resisted immediately. Like my brain understood something before I consciously did. Instead, I just sat there, frozen, staring at my phone. Then another message came. Almost instantly. Good. Don't. That's when I felt it. Not fear. Awareness. Like someone was very close. Closer than they should be. I stood up slowly, looked around the room, checked the door. Locked. Windows. Closed. Everything was normal. Too normal. I didn't sleep much that night. The next morning, I convinced myself it was just a prank. Some random person. Lucky guess. Coincidence. Until I got the photo. It came in the afternoon. From another new account. No text this time. Just an image. I opened it without thinking. And immediately wished I hadn't. It was me, sitting at my desk. Taken from behind. From inside my room. The angle was wrong for a phone. Too stable. Too intentional. My first thought was obvious. Someone had been inside. But something about the photo didn't feel right. The lighting. The shadows. They didn't match the room. Not exactly. I stood up immediately and looked around. Every corner. Every surface. Nothing. No cameras. No signs of entry. No explanation. Then I looked back at the photo. Zoomed in. And that's when I noticed it. On the screen of my laptop. There was something open. A window. A video. I paused. Because I didn't remember watching anything. I zoomed in further. And my stomach dropped. It was a recording. Of a place I didn't recognize. And in the corner of that video, there was someone sitting, wearing the same jacket as me, moving exactly like me, but not in my room, not in my apartment, not anywhere I had ever been. I stared at it for a long time, trying to make sense of it, trying to find something that would explain it. There wasn't anything. Then my phone buzzed again. Same type of account. No name. No picture. New message. You're starting to notice. I didn't reply. I couldn't. Because for the first time, I wasn't sure what scared me more. The fact that someone was watching me. Or the fact that maybe they weren't watching this version of me at all. Part 2. I started seeing myself in places I've never been. I didn't answer the message right away. Not because I was trying to stay calm or think rationally, but because something much deeper and more instinctive held me back. The kind of quiet internal warning that doesn't explain itself, yet feels impossible to ignore. Instead, I just sat there, staring at the photo on my phone, slowly zooming in and out, as if the image might change if I looked at it long enough, as if the details would rearrange themselves into something that made sense. But they didn't. If anything, the longer I stared, the worse it became. The room in the video, the one open on my laptop screen in the photo, wasn't just unfamiliar. It felt structurally wrong, like a place that followed the general logic of a room, but failed in subtle, almost unnoticeable ways. The walls were slightly off in proportion. the corners not perfectly aligned, and the lighting didn't seem to come from any identifiable source, instead existing as a dull, even glow that flattened everything inside it. And yet, the person sitting there moved exactly like me. Not similar, not close enough. Exactly. The way they leaned forward, the way their shoulders shifted, even the small, unconscious movements, adjusting posture, tapping fingers lightly against the surface. All of it matched patterns I recognized as my own, things I had never consciously noticed until that moment. It wasn't imitation. It was synchronization. I snapped the laptop shut without thinking. The sound echoed louder than it should have in the room, as if it had cut something off mid-process. For a second, I just stood there, hands still resting on the lid, listening to the silence that followed. Then my phone buzzed again. I didn't want to look, but I did. You closed it too early. A slow, uncomfortable pressure built in my chest as I read those words. Not because they were threatening in any direct way, but because they implied something I couldn't quite process yet. They weren't reacting to me. They were reacting to the other version of me. I opened the laptop again, slowly this time, carefully, like I expected something to change the moment the screen lit up. The same window was there, the same video, the same room, and the same person. But this time, they weren't moving. They were just sitting there, perfectly still, looking directly at the camera, at me. A chill ran through me, sharp and immediate, because I hadn't been looking at the screen long enough for that change to make sense. There was no transition, no movement, just a sudden shift from motion to stillness. And then, very slowly, they smiled. Not widely, not exaggerated, just enough to feel deliberate. My phone buzzed again. I didn't even need to check, but I did anyway. Now it's your turn. I stepped back from the desk, my eyes still locked on the screen, my mind racing through explanations that collapsed almost as quickly as they formed. This couldn't be a live feed. It didn't behave like one, but it also wasn't a recording. Because recordings don't react. And yet, everything I did seemed to trigger a response. I reached forward, hesitated for a brief second, and then moved the cursor across the screen, hovering over the video timeline. There was no timestamp, no controls, no indication that it could be paused, rewound, or even closed. Just a window, existing. I glanced back at my phone. Another message. Don't try to control it. The words felt less like a warning and more like a correction, as if I had just misunderstood the nature of something much larger than I initially assumed. I looked back at the screen. The person me was still there, still smiling, still watching. And then, without breaking eye contact, they reached forward. Not toward something on their desk, not toward anything visible in their environment, but directly toward the camera, toward me. My breath caught for a second as their hand came closer, filling more of the frame, distorting slightly as it approached the lens. And for a brief, almost imperceptible moment, the lighting in my room flickered, not dramatically, not like a power outage, just enough to make me question whether it actually happened. I turned my head instinctively, scanning the room, expecting to find some explanation, a faulty bulb, a passing shadow, anything that could ground what I was experiencing in something real. But everything looked exactly the same, until I noticed the reflection, not in a mirror, in the dark screen of my TV. And what I saw there didn't match what I was doing. I was standing still, but the reflection was slowly raising its hand. Part 3, I started seeing myself in places I've never been. For a moment, I couldn't move, not because I was physically unable to, but because my mind refused to accept what my eyes were clearly seeing. The reflection in the TV screen continued to move independently, slowly lifting its hand with a kind of deliberate calmness that felt far more controlled than anything I would have done in that moment. And the worst part wasn't the movement itself. It was the expression. Because while I knew my own face, knew exactly how I looked when I was confused, anxious, or scared. That version of me wasn't any of those things. It looked certain, not aggressive, not emotional, just completely aware of what it was doing. I forced myself to look away from the reflection and turn back toward the laptop screen, hoping, irrationally, that something there would make more sense. It didn't. The figure inside the video had moved even closer to the camera, close enough now that the details of the face were sharper, more defined, and disturbingly real, as if the distance between there and here had somehow started collapsing. Then my phone vibrated again. This time I didn't hesitate. I grabbed it immediately, almost desperate for something familiar, something structured, even if it was coming from whoever or whatever had been sending these messages. "You're out of sync." I frowned, reading it again, trying to understand what that meant in any practical sense. Out of sync with what? With the video? With the reflection? Before I could process it further, another message appeared. "Stop resisting." And then, almost instantly after that, "Do what it does." I felt a cold, creeping realization settle in, slow but undeniable, like a pattern finally revealing itself after being just out of reach. I turned my head again, this time forcing myself to look directly at the TV reflection. It was still there, still not matching me, still slightly ahead. The hand in the reflection was now fully raised, held in the air, waiting. And in that moment, I understood something I hadn't been willing to accept before. This wasn't something observing me. It was something trying to align me. My breathing slowed, not out of calmness, but out of concentration as I slowly lifted my own hand, matching the position I saw in the reflection. The moment I did, the reflection stopped moving. For the first time, it matched me perfectly. And at the exact same time, the figure on the laptop screen froze. Everything went still. The room felt balanced, like something had just corrected itself. My phone buzzed again. Better. A strange sense of relief passed through me, subtle but undeniable, as if some invisible pressure that had been building in the background had suddenly eased. But it didn't last, because almost immediately after, another message appeared. "Now keep going." I didn't move at first, because something about that instruction felt different, more final. I looked back at the laptop. The figure, me, was no longer reaching toward the camera. Instead, it had turned slightly, facing something outside the frame. And then it stood up, slowly, calmly, without breaking that same unsettling composure. My reflection in the TV didn't move. It stayed in place, watching, waiting. My phone vibrated again. "Follow." I swallowed, my throat suddenly dry, as I felt that same internal resistance pushing back, stronger this time, more desperate. But alongside it, there was something else. Curiosity. Not normal curiosity. Not the kind that asks questions. The kind that pulls you forward even when you already know you shouldn't go. I stood there for a few seconds longer, my eyes shifting between the screen, the reflection, and the empty room around me, trying to find something that still belonged entirely to me. Something unchanged, something real, but everything now felt connected, synchronized, and slowly, against my better judgment, I took a step forward. At the exact same moment, the figure on the screen stepped too, perfectly in sync. My reflection followed a split second later. And for the first time since all of this started, all three of us moved as one. My phone buzzed again. I didn't need to look, but I did anyway. You're almost there. Final. I started seeing myself in places I've never been. For a moment, everything aligned so perfectly that it felt unnatural. Not calm, not safe, just correct. The movement, the posture, even the rhythm of my breathing. It all matched the figure on the screen with an accuracy that went beyond imitation, beyond coincidence, into something mechanical, almost predetermined. I took another step forward. So did it. The reflection followed. And with each movement, that strange, invisible resistance I had felt before grew weaker, like something inside me was slowly giving up control, piece by piece without a fight. My phone buzzed again. This time, the message was longer. You're not being replaced. I stopped. My eyes moved slowly to the screen, to the version of me that now stood closer than ever before. Then another message appeared. You're being corrected. A quiet, almost imperceptible shift passed through the room, like the air itself had adjusted to something finally settling into place. I felt it before I understood it, that everything I had been experiencing, the messages, the images, the reflection, wasn't random. It was a process, a calibration. I looked at my hands, at the way they rested at my sides, at how still they suddenly felt. Then I looked at the screen again, and for the first time, I noticed the difference. Not in movement, not in timing, in detail. The version of me inside the video wasn't just copying what I was doing. It was cleaner, more precise, like a version of me without hesitation, without doubt, without those small, unconscious imperfections that make movements human. My phone vibrated again. The original was unstable. A sharp, almost painful clarity cut through my thoughts. Original, not me. Something before me. Another message. This has been done before. The posts. The people who stopped replying. The silence. They weren't disappearing. They were being aligned. Replaced wasn't a right word. Refined. My breathing slowed again, but this time it wasn't from fear. It was from understanding. I stepped closer to the screen. The figure mirrored me perfectly now. No delay. No difference. My reflection no longer lagged behind. All three were the same. Then, without any message this time, the figure on the screen raised its hand again. Not slowly, not cautiously, naturally, like it wasn't thinking about it. And I followed, at the exact same moment. For a brief second, everything froze. And then, the screen flickered. Just once. When it stabilized, the room in the video was empty. No figure, no movement, just a chair, and a space where someone used to be. My heart skipped, but not from panic. From something else. Something quieter. I turned toward the TV. The reflection matched me perfectly. No delay. No independent movement. Just me. I stood there for a long time, waiting, expecting something else to happen. But nothing did. The messages stopped. The video didn't return. The room was silent. Everything was normal. It's been 3 weeks since then. Nothing strange has happened. No messages. No photos. No reflections moving on their own. If anything, my life has been better, more focused, more controlled. I don't hesitate like I used to. I don't second guess small decisions. I don't feel that constant background noise in my thoughts. It's quieter now, cleaner, like something unnecessary has been removed. I don't think about it much anymore. Not the messages, not the video, not the other version of me. Because honestly, I don't feel like anything was taken. But yesterday, something small happened. I was walking past a store window late at night, and for a brief moment, I caught my reflection, perfectly normal, until it blinked, a fraction of a second too late. When I stopped walking, it was already still, and for the first time since all of this ended, I felt something again. Not fear, not confusion, just one quiet thought. Maybe this isn't finished.